The nurses' organisation has called a nationwide strike next month, saying the latest pay offer from Te Whatu Ora will cause another wave of nurses moving to Australia. The NZNO says the health system's in chaos, the government has forgotten about patients and has accountants running the health system. Senior reporter Juliet Speedy has more.
They're the front line of healthcare in this country.
They're upset, they're frustrated, they're absolutely fatigued and worn out. And they can't see it getting any better, you know.
And bargaining between Health New Zealand and the nurses' organisation has broken down.
We seem to have hit a hard place pretty quickly, actually, and around two critical issues. One is wages, and the other is safe staffing or staffing complements.
Te Whatu Ora.
I guess that means numbers as well, doesn't it, Joey? It does seem so simple that we constantly talk about people leaving for Australia, and every time we do that, when we're talking and specifically about doctors, nurses, teachers, and who else? Police. All you do is you look to Australia and they're getting 10, 20, 30% more when it comes to pay, and they're getting a lump sum to move across there. I don't care what you say. I don't think teachers become teachers for money or nurses become nurses for money. Doctors, but it's unquestionable that if you paid them what they were worth, or at least better than you're paying them now, then you'd have more of them. Is that fair, Chewy?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's this classic thing. Like I know this is a criticism of this government. It's a criticism of previous governments as well. They haven't kept up with the curve. And that means that someone's carrying the can for a big increase and that sort of thing. But here we are in the shadow of a global pandemic, and we're bitching and moaning and nickel and diming these nurses over paying conditions. We need more nurses. There's not enough of them, and they're not sticking around and using the training that they're getting in this country. They're taking it somewhere else. That sounds like a poor deal to me. That sounds like we understand the cost, we don't see the value.
Yeah, and I think that was it Whakatane that the police in Whakatane were being targeted directly from Australia. Australia's smart because Australia just goes, wow, if we can pay these Kiwis, or we pay our cobbers, they'll be better off and they'll come. And guess what? More New Zealanders left last year in the last 12 months than have ever left this country before. And most of them went, guess where? Australia. So it's working for Aussie, and it's frustrating. It's obligatory that we say it once a show, that they're happy to spend $3 billion on landlords and $14 billion on tax cuts and underpay our nurses, our teachers, our doctors. But I actually go specifically nurses and teachers. I feel they're more service than the other ones. They're not, but because they don't get the BMW as a doctor may. You paid them a bit better, then they'd be around a bit more. And then, of course, you tell us how the system's broken and the health system's broken. And it's like, just pay people more. Or when they come out, like Chewy talked about a story a few months ago, when they come out of nursing school, university, and you offer them a job, don't pull it back away from them. Let them actually have the job you've offered them. Anyway, we'll keep going, eh?
Has capped any increase at 1% of total employee costs, which would mean 0.5% in the first year.
We haven't nominated for
0.5%. So what would that be?
If spit on them. Just do that.
Let's say a nurse is earning 70 grand. That might be a senior nurse. Times 0.5% equals. It says 35. Can't be 35. Maybe 3,500. Well, 1% would be 1% on 70,000 would be, because 10% would be 7,000. So 1% would be 700. So a 0.1% increase would be $350, $7 a week. Hey, stay in New Zealand. Holy crap, that's horrific.
figure, but what we say is it needs to recognise cost of living, otherwise it'll be a wage cut.
Nurses are also alarmed at plans to pause a digital staffing system used in hospitals to indicate how many full-time staff are required on duty at any given time.
God.
Health New Zealand told 3 News it values the enormous contribution of our nursing workforce and thanks them for.
Are you serious? I've
Yeah,
said this here
you-
before. I
They
used to know
value-
someone who was a senior man in New Zealand, and the thing he would say to me often is, when words and actions disagree, believe the actions. So Mark Shepherd, Health New Zealand values the enormous contribution of our nursing workforce and thanks them for their critical work. Those are the words. But when you say we will give you 0.5% increase or $350 a year if you're earning $70,000, the actions don't say that, Chewy.
No, what a rain of insults. $350, and then you get this guy going, "Oh, we absolutely value your enormous contribution." No, you don't. Do you know how you show that you value someone's enormous contribution? You put a value on it, and you guys have just put $350 on it. For a lot of people, like with a family and that sort of thing, that's like a 1-2 weeks shopping and it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Just for
That's
clarity.
madness.
Just for clarity, because I thought we started talking about 70,000, like the misinformation thing, like all of a sudden that was truthful, Chewy. Like I just threw a number out there. So I've just had a look and it says $45.16 per hour. The average salary for a registered nurse in New Zealand, $45.16 per hour. It says they are 79,000 to 104,000. Senior registered nurses can be 111,000 to 158,000. So call it 80,000. So 80,000. So we were wrong about 350. That makes it $400 a week. So much difference if you're on $80,000 as opposed to 350. Good Lord, that's horrific. Okay, let's keep going.
Told 3 News it values the enormous contribution of our nursing workforce and thanks them for their critical work.
Of course you do.
But we are disappointed that strike action is being taken so early in the bargaining process. Any settlement needs to reflect the ongoing reset of Health New Zealand as we work to get back to budget and complete the restructuring underway.
Got
No,
two
no, no.
different models.
Yes, Stu, sorry, you sounded like you needed to explode
But-
shortly.
The health budget. Remember this whole thing? The health budget? They've got to get back to budget? No. The government needs to fund the health sector correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Rephrase that question. The budget is in the position it's in because of choices that the government made. To
100%.
not increase the budget to match cost of living, increased costs, and they chose to give money away rather than put it into where it's needed.
Yeah.
They chose not to tax wealthy people, so they had to make these hard cuts and pass that on to the shoulders of our nurses who have to suck up an insult pay offer. And this guy's like, "Oh, we're really disappointed you're striking." Mate, I'm surprised that they're not chucking office furniture through your fucking window. I'd be furious.
I think what you've just said is something we need to always remember. Remember, when the government says something like, we've got tight budgets, or we have to reach our budgets, or we have to set our targets, they've decided all of those. They've decided the targets. They've decided the budgets. All of those are decisions they've made. So when they say, there's not really enough money in the budget, what they're saying is there's not really enough money in the budget that we could have allocated any amount to, but we chose not to. It's a really important point. You hear about people talking about austerity and not having a lot of money to throw around, the health system. It's like, that's a choice. That's a government choice not to have a lot of money to throw around the health system. That is not necessarily, it's not like they're trying to sell widgets and, oh gosh, the widget, Chewy, the sale of widgets have dropped by 40% in the East. It's not that. It's that they've chosen to go, we're going to give you this much money. Oh gosh, there's not much money to work with now. Yeah, I know, because you decided that. It's a really important point to remember.